Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio. Thank you for joining us again. I appreciate your viewership today and in the future. We have a great show lined up for you today. I said that we were going to introduce a new format this week. On Monday, I did a deep dive on globalism versus nationalism. Tonight, we're going to cover the news and current events. I have a number of news headlines lined up for you to cover, everything from Kari Lake and the Black National Anthem all the way to this Ohio train derailment and announcements from the front on this NATO and Ukraine war. So we're going to get into that and much more. So sit back, relax. It's going to be a fun show. We're going to have a little bit more of a lighthearted discussion and talk about what's going on out there in the world, in real time. So here we go. Episode 5, Please Call Me Crazy. The day is February 15th, 2023, or the year of our Lord, 2023. I'm sorry. It's Wednesday evening. Well, we thank you all for being here. And today, I have to start with Kari Lake, the great Kari Lake from the great state of Arizona. She is a warrior. I love Kari Lake. Let me repeat. I love Kari Lake. And yes, she's a bombshell. She's a looker, right? And she's a very, very intelligent and beautiful woman. But the thing I love most about Kari Lake is she's a fighter. She does not allow the narrative or the consensus around politics, what's needed for her to be successful, quote unquote, as a politician, determine her behavior and determine the way that she thinks and the things that she's willing to stand for. And over the weekend, obviously we had the Super Bowl, which is an American, a huge American event. It's a huge event all around the world, especially for the corporations. And the Super Bowl was a great game. I watched it. I tuned in reluctantly. Great game. Ended up being a great game. I certainly didn't agree with not taking the touchdown and holding and kicking the field goal, but it ended up working out for the now Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, and Pat Mahomes, has his second Super Bowl championship, and that's all good. The reason I was reluctant to watch the Super Bowl has nothing to do with the athletes and the time that they put in, the commitment it takes to be an athlete at that level, the sacrifice that they make with their, of their bodies, going in and playing football week in and weekend out, weekend in and weekend out. None of that is why I was reluctant to watch the Super Bowl. I was reluctant to watch because I come from within inside that machine. I come from within the belly of that beast, the watering hole for a global corporate community that professional sports has come to represent. And the NBA a little bit more on an international level because the NBA or basketball is a little bit more of an international game. But the NFL as well, because America is the tip of the spear of international corporations or international corporatocracy and our financial and economic interests here and all of the corporate partners that exist here that touch the NFL have a global scope as well. And so because of that, all of the advertising or advertisement excitement around the NFL Super Bowl, to me, reeks of misinformation. It reeks of psyop. It reeks for all kinds of agendas that the establishment gets to pilot and sort of test drive on the American people and the global audience once a year. And this was no different. And now, if you go back to the NFL controversies of the past or of the recent past, you had the concussion controversy, right? And that one is still controversial in many ways, where the NFL became aware of this concussion issue that was, amongst its players, its athletes, and actively tried to suppress it. And Dr. Amalu was the person who initially brought the concussion research to the forefront, and he was silenced and censored and besmirched in the media and blackballed, you could say, in a way, for trying to bring that science and those findings to the public, to the players, but to the wider public. And then shortly after that, you had the huge Colin Kaepernick controversy. And the huge Colin Kaepernick controversy was in effect about the national anthem. and Colin Kaepernick taking a knee during the anthem, and then eventually taking a knee during the anthem to an ongoing problem with police brutality in black communities across America. So this is kind of the backdrop, and I'm sure everybody's aware of this, because if you're listening to this podcast, which is heavily political and cultural, then this issue was at the top of the heap for the past 6 years at least, maybe a little bit less. The time escapes me, but that's kind of the history of the NFL with the national anthem. And at the time when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, people lined up on both sides, or people lined up on all sides. Let's say that. The people lined up on every side that you could. Some people were pro-military, and it was about patriotism, and we can't disrespect the anthem. And some people were, no, this is about black people being shot and killed in the street. And some people were, this is about racism writ large. Some of the owners were saying, this is just about football. We don't want all of these politics in our football. And I saw the entire thing as a huge example of dishonest identity in cultural politics. And the reason I say that is because of this. People are not always who they purport themselves to be. People are not always doing things for the reasons they say they're doing things. People's true motivation does not always line up with the motivation that they are willing to discuss. And no example in recent memory was better than the Colin Kaepernick take a knee situation. And in that situation, you can see people on all sides sort of trip all over themselves when it comes to the worldview that they would like to promote. And I do mean on all sides. And we know that the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, pro-black sort of amalgamation of identity politics and Marxist, socialist, academia worldview has infinite dishonesty in their motivation to discuss any issue in the public square. But the NFL had its dishonesty too, right? They want to talk about patriotism and respecting the anthem, or some people on that side wanted to make it about that. And really, the NFL is a chameleonic sports institution, and they're starting to show that now. The same way the NBA is a chameleonic sports institution. And you may look at these institutions and think that they have an ideology at their root, but in effect, they don't have an ideology at their root. The consumers who they aim to target, certainly have an ideology or an ideological framework by demographic. And any good, quote unquote, good salesman or businessman or entrepreneur or corporation is increasingly starting to identify their target audience or their demographic and be good at giving those people exactly what they want in the product. And so the NFL is no different than the NBA in this way. And although the demographic of the NBA and the NFL are somewhat different, the two institutions operate in the same way in trying to target and reach those demographics. And so the NBA leans a little bit more liberal woke, and the NFL leans a little bit more statist military industrial complex. And we know that the military industrial complex has a litany of corrupt, un-American, unpatriotic, unjust, ungodly, unrighteous actions in its history, in its recent history. And they use this football player who kind of was the symbol of the NFL's pivot to a more military promotion within its content and within its product. And they even featured this young man in this story. And can we look up his name again? His name escapes me, and I apologize. And my thoughts and prayers are with his family. And he was a soldier that we lost in the Iraq War, and he had quit the NFL to join the military to serve in the Iraq War because he thought that it was his patriotic duty, and you have to honor that. Yes, his name's Patrick Tillman. I'm sorry, we got a million things going on, and sometimes names escape me. Patrick Tillman was a former NFL player who stopped playing in the NFL, quit the NFL to join the military. Now, this is a man with sacred honor. Okay, this is a man who had the life that most people would dream for, and they would trade in uh, almost anything to have. I mean, this man had an NFL career, right? The rarity of that, the uniqueness of an NFL career is unimaginable. It's unquantifiable. It's such a small percentage of people. It's only only group smaller would be NBA players or MLB players because the teams are much smaller. So this man had it all. He had the American dream. He was an American football player, and he said, "You know what? Our nation is under attack. Our nation is under threat, and I want to go and fight and help our country. Fight a war, defend this nation and its beliefs and its people, its citizens, and that's honorable." But in the first episode, or in the second episode, I forget which one, I emphasized how the establishment, the corrupt in the establishment, are masters of manipulation and intelligence, especially when it comes to the narrative, especially when it comes to winning over the consensus of the people that they need to sell things to. And the NFL and the military industrial complex, or our nation, or our corrupt DC elite nation leaders who carry water for a globalist agenda, there's no greater example. They are the same in how they operate in that manner. And we were sold the dream about the Iraq war. That isn't on Patrick Tillman. Our dishonesty in the Iraq war, our corruption or lack of righteousness, dishonesty in the Iraq war doesn't fall on Patrick Tillman. Patrick Tillman wanting to serve his country is an honorable thing, and he lost his life in that, and we should all remember that, and we should all observe his memory with reverence and respect, and understand that he laid down his life for what he thought was protecting the country. That's sacred honor. But there are people who are so intelligent, who are so manipulative, who are so good at creating a false consensus that they can use a Patrick Tillman and his sacred honor to condition you to accept their conquest. They're conquering you slowly but surely in increments. And that's the NFL and the military's partnership right now. Look over here, the Super Bowl, the halftime show. It's Rihanna. It's whoever else, right? It's the advertisements. It's the celebrities that came to the game. I think I saw it was Kevin Hart was at the game, and it's a couple of other people. It's all of these people. Look over here. But, oh, by the way, we're going to fly. It's going to be the first all-female flyover, right? The NFL did the first all-female flyover. And if you don't know what the flyover is, the Air Force, I think it's the Air Force. It could be the Navy pilots, but I'm pretty sure it's the Air Force. The Air Force does a flyover before every Super Bowl, and they fly over the F-16s, and it's a huge part of the opening ceremonies of the Super Bowl game. And this year they just decided to do an all-female flyover, and here they're promoting it on MSN and The Hill and all of the Fox News. And the Super Bowl flyover commemorates 50 years of women flying in the U.S. Navy. So it was a U.S. Navy flyover. But it's an all-female pilot team, and that made Super Bowl flyover history. So right there, we're seeing that the NFL has decided to merge the product that they sell with a more woke, liberal, woke, leftist, progressive narrative, right? That women aren't equal, and every time we create this all-woman sort of presentation, it's historic, and it's a cause for observation, for reverence, for respect, and this moment of silence type of mentality. But when we go back to our military and the military-industrial complex, we see a similar spirit and culture growing in the military. We see a similar signal coming from the noise within our military ranks, where very senior members, veteran members of the military, are increasingly worried about the desire to meet LGBTQ quotas and other woke quotas within our military, and the damage that it's done or doing, and the danger that it puts American citizens in. And so in that way, you can see how our ideology, our politics, our culture are starting to bastardize the memory of the soldiers that we lost, that laid their lives down for these wars, even if the wars themselves were not righteous. And I bring all that into focus in the first 15 minutes here to try and give you a framework of how moral hazard works. And this was away from Kari Lake, but I got off on that tangent, and I thought that it'd be good to give you that framework. This is moral hazard. Right. And it goes all the way back to the inception of our country. And we'll talk about that one day. But this is all a lack of righteousness. This is a lack of moral clarity and moral fortitude. And it seeps in at each point. And as it seeps in, it becomes a little more entrenched. And so with all that being said, we know that there's a seriously dishonest spirit taking place when the Super Bowl's on. Writ large, everybody involved is coming to the world stage to try and get off their rocks about whatever it is they believe in the best way possible. And then they're willing to lie to you because that's the culture we built, right? Politics are downstream from culture. Culture is downstream from the spirit, and the spirit is downstream from God and his grace and his glory. And we have some heroes. There are heroes amongst us. And Kari Lake, to go back to the beginning, is an American hero. Now, Kari Lake refused to stand for the Black National Anthem, and this made headlines. And you can see from those headlines that it's the same old run-of-the-mill story that they're trying to tell. Far-right, conservative, conspiracy theorists, election denier, any other thing they want to call Kari Lake, which they would call me as well. She's off doing it again. She's being racist, right? She wouldn't stand for the Black National Anthem. And I love Kari Lake's response, and I tweeted about this, and I'm going to read my tweet for you guys just because Kari retweeted this, and I thought that was cool. Me and Kari know each other personally. Obviously, we're two fighters in the same movement, and I think I don't want to confirm yet, but I think Kari Lake will be one of our first family and friends interviews here on the show in the coming weeks. But I tweeted and I said, y'all got white transgender lesbians teaching Black history and excluding Malcolm X. But I'm supposed to be mad at Kari Lake for saying we are one nation under God, one anthem for everybody. Isn't that a good thing? What kind of backwards race baiting is that? Pound sand. Okay, so, and 20 minutes in here, I want to speak to Kari's response. Kari had a brilliant response when she was asked about why she didn't stand for the national anthem. She said, I'm against the Black national anthem for the same reason I'm against a white national anthem, a gay national anthem, a straight national anthem, a Jewish national anthem, a Christian national anthem, and so on. We are one nation under God. Francis Scott Key's words ring true for every single American citizen, regardless of their skin color. James Weldon Johnson's Lift Your Voice is a beautiful song, but it is not our national anthem. Now everybody's in an outrage, right? Oh, Kari Lake's a racist. Oh, Kari Lake doesn't want to stand for the Black national anthem. Why can't you stand for the Black national anthem? Is it going to hurt you? Do you dislike Black people that much? Is it that big of a deal? And I'm here to affirm Kari Lake's position. Yes, it is a big deal. And it's not that we can't find a time for the Black national anthem. It's not that we can't find the value of the Black national anthem. That's not the point that Kari Lake is making. The point that Kari Lake is making at the Super Bowl, which I think is very effective and very heroic, is that at these super corporate media industrial complex mainstream narrative events where the brainwashing has become commonplace, where all of the narratives come to sort of stretch their legs and walk around the block. At this place, the Black national anthem is not a representation of this affectation or this love or desire for Black people to prosper. It's a sign of a woke race baiting political narrative that is meant to divide this country, that is meant to drive a wedge deeper so that the populace, regardless of skin color or gender or sexual preference or whatever you want to say, any dividing demographic line, cannot come together, cannot find their way back together to fight off the corruption of elitism. And if you know anything about Kari Lake and her candidacy there in Arizona and her time in politics, she has continuously drawn a hard line in the sand to fight against the status quo of corrupt DC elites, the uniparty, and this sort of normalcy of globalists or globalism, and using the narrative to do it. And the way that the reason why Kari Lake became so famous, again, she's strikingly beautiful and she's intelligent, but she also came from within the media industrial complex herself. She was a TV personality there in Arizona, and she was a very famous one at that. And she was great on television, but she knows how television and media works from the inside. She lived it. She lived it for 20 plus years, 25 plus years, maybe 30. I mean, I think Kari Lake started off in Arizona on television when she was, 19 or 20 years old. So she's been in media, and the media hates having to interview her. They try and frame her as a conspiracy theorist the way they would, and for the reason they would try and frame me as a conspiracy theorist and just write without ever asking us any questions. And this is why you see in this sort of black national anthem narrative, Kari Lake's quotes are either not represented at all, or she's misrepresented as the same image of her from the past, right? They don't want to give her a chance to talk. As little as they can give her a chance to talk, they do it because they know that she's a formidable force when it comes to communicating her message and communicating the problems and issues that this country and its people face. And they've done the same here. None of the headlines will emphasize, none of the mainstream establishment headlines will emphasize the reason she gave for not standing for the Black National Anthem, because they're all in on the identity politics gravy train. And it is a gravy train. And here I got an article pulled up from BET, and the headline is far-right conservative. This is BET. This is Black Entertainment Television. And I'm going to get down on the Black community here in a moment, but I want to show you how we've become co-opted by this liberal mainstream media establishment. Far-right conservatives lose it over Black National Anthem performance at Super Bowl. Trump-backed candidate Kari Lake refused to stand. That's the headline. She refused to stand. These are far-right conservatives. These people are, radicals. Now, they had the decency to put her quote in the opening part of this article here. But obviously many people read the headlines, and this is part of the problem, right? This is part of the reason why I don't talk down to my audience, why I'm trying to build a podcast and an audience and a dialogue that respects and understands the importance of detail and nuance and deep conversation and critical thought. Because understand, the way you've been bastardized at home, the way your citizenship has been effectively hijacked and bastardized and spent abroad in a number of illegitimate and unrighteous ways is because we have developed, we as a populace or as a culture have developed a headline culture. Most people only read the headlines. Most people only read the titles on YouTube. Most people only watch the first 10 seconds of a video, or the first 60 seconds, or the first minute and a half. People do not have a comprehensive engagement with their distractions. I mean, if you're going to live in a world of distractions and you're going to buy into a world of distractions, at least be thorough in the distractions. And so many people, the people at BET know that many aren't even going to read Kari Lake's reasoning for not standing for the Black National Anthem. And I agree with her not standing for the Black National Anthem. I really do. And she's taken a stand. And it's not her versus Colin Kaepernick or the Black Lives Matter versus MAGA. What she is saying, and she said it herself, so I can let her words speak for themselves. We don't need a national anthem for any variety or demographic specifically. Our national anthem, our American national anthem, was meant for every American citizen. And by that standard, it's good enough for everybody. And at this moment in time, politically, we have a huge rift in this country that uses these identity politics to forward an illegitimate narrative, and that she didn't want to participate in that. And I commend her for that. And I'm hoping that Kari Lake will come on the show in the weeks to come and speak for herself when it comes to this issue and many more issues, because she is one of the true bright spots of potential American leadership, and I hope that she continues to stay in politics and fight and be who she has been. She's a fighter, the great Kari Lake in the great state of Arizona. And so let me, we're about 30 minutes in, and I want to get to some other stories, and we'll do some quick hitters on some of these other things. But let me talk to the Black community for a minute, because this offends me. It offends me that we would allow ourselves to be brainwashed, to be influenced, to be misled, led astray by the liberal establishment, by the liberal mainstream media, and in such a childlike manner. I mean, this is childish. And I'm going to be honest. The politics culturally of Black people in this country are childish. We have a childish political mindset, by and large. Don't get me wrong. There are some groups out there. Let me go back. Let me start with this. And I tweeted this, and a lot of people reposted a video of Morgan Freeman. And I think Morgan Freeman is a very intelligent man. He's certainly a brilliant actor, one of the most brilliant actors and voices of our generation, of multiple generations of all time in Hollywood or in mainstream television or cinema. But Morgan Freeman, once had a famous interview where he was asked, how do we get rid of racism? And he was speaking about Black History Month. And we are currently in Black History Month. But he was speaking about not wanting to have a Black History Month. And he asked the broadcaster who was interviewing him, do you have a White History Month? And the interviewer says, I'm Jewish. And so Morgan Freeman goes, okay, well, do you have a Jewish History Month? And he goes, no, I don't want one. And Morgan Freeman goes, well, yeah, I don't want one either. And he goes, and the response from the journalist was, well, how are we going to fight racism? How are we going to get rid of racism? And Morgan Freeman says, stop talking about it. Now, this is a brilliant insight, but it's 50-50. And I'm going to say, and I'm going to make the delineation here for myself, and I think it's right for us as a people, we the people, all of us, that we should not run away from race or a conversation about race. And we certainly can't run away from a conversation about race while it is being actively used as a battle axe or a battering ram for a neoliberal Marxist globalist agenda. We need to talk about race. We need to get down to the bone about race and the history of it, the true history of it, not the mainstream liberal, post-World War II democratic liberal order history about racism, the real history about racism. We need to get it out on the table, talk about it as much as we need to, until the truth emerges, the universal truth, the real truth, not the faux consensus, not the fake consensus that's built by this media industrial complex and the grievance politics, race baiting grifters. We need to talk about race. But then once we talk about race and we get some sort of resemblance of the truth about it in a mainstream cultural way, then I'm fine saying, you know what, we don't need to talk about race anymore. We've worked that out. But there are no issues that are caught in a knot that we can avoid, that we can afford to not untangle, especially that one, because like I said on Friday and on Monday, the race narrative is the social justice pillar of social justice, democracy, and environmentalism that is the tip of the spear for the globalist agenda and is creating the narrative for everybody to buy into so willingly at mass. That is the central focus. That is the driving force of the globalist agenda. Race, okay? The history of blacks, the history of Jews, the history of racism of Nazi Germany, the history of racism in Italy, the history of racism in Japan. These are the cornerstones, the ideological cornerstones of the globalist agenda. So we can't afford not to talk about race. So let's talk about it. I'm willing to talk about it. Let's talk about it and be honest. The black community, and there is a black community, there is a Latino community or a Hispanic community, there is a white community. Is it as hegemonic as people make it seem? No. Are there some pretty cogent truths that stand out about communities in general? I would say so. Do they line up every single time? Are they 100% accurate? No. Are they even 60% accurate? No. But they have some validity, and we have to be courageous enough, honest enough. We have to be committed enough. We have to be serious enough about this country, this nation, its future, our own human existence to confront that. There are some truths out there about people, communities, demographics. I just read the other day, and this isn't to slander the LGBTQ, but I just read the other day that lesbian couples have 2 to 3 times more domestic violence than any other formation of romantic couples. That lesbian couples are the most domestically violent towards each other. I had no clue. It was a shock to read that. It kind of fights against the narrative that women aren't violent or that men are on average more violent than women. And I guess you could still say that on average they probably are, but it's interesting that lesbian couples have such a huge prevalence of domestic violence. But back to my point, let's talk about the race thing, because black people have been the dog and pony for this liberal, neoliberal, Marxist, globalist, anti-human agenda. We do not take ourselves seriously enough. The things we allow the mainstream media to tell us, the BS headlines, the BS narratives that they put out there in front of you to latch on to so that they can sell your product while they take away your citizenship and freedom is absolutely unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's frustrating as a black man, and yes, I'm a black man, but I also have Norwegian blood, and I also have Mexican blood, right? Both of my grandfathers had what you would call exotic appetites by their own cultural standards. But my grandfather on one side married a first-generation immigrant from Mexico, and my grandfather on my other side married a first-generation immigrant from Norway. And so, I'm mixed, but I'm 50 to 65% black. So as a black man, the political culture of the black community and of black America frustrates me to no end. I mean, and here's what they want to say. They want to say that anybody who believes in a country, anybody who believes in having a nation or a border, or anybody who rejects this global governance is a racist. That everybody who rejects these policies is only doing it so they can play out their race, their racist and their racial animus, their racism. And Kari Lake is in the crosshairs, but Kari Lake is really a byproduct of an animus and a sort of disdain for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump got painted the same way. And I want to say, when they say far right conservatives, let me be clear. Donald Trump is not a far right anything. And while, for that matter, Kari Lake is not a far right anything. Arizona has always had a very, very moderate, purple, independent, sort of governed from the center political culture. Arizona has always been a state that teeters on the line of being Democrat, Republican. And the Republicans in Arizona, in a large part, are more moderate Republicans. It's just the truth of the matter. And that's not a bad thing. In the final analysis, if you want to talk about politics and what this country needs, I think we could use some radical politics, some radical ideologies in this country, because we're in a very radical place in time. And Abraham Lincoln was a radical. Now, the radicalism at that time had more to do with solving this racial issue, but that is where the Republican Party started. Abraham Lincoln was the one who said, hey, racism was never intended to be the cornerstone of this country or this country's economic model. And yeah, there was a war to fight between the North and the South. And yeah, that war had to do with much more than slavery. But in effect, there was one group of people who were pro-slavery. There was one group of people who weren't. And the Republican Party stood on the front line for the abolishment of slavery. That's a fact. And Abraham Lincoln was the leader of that movement and that wave. But that's what they want to tell you, that Kari Lake, Donald Trump, these people are far right. These people are extremists. They're racist. They're white nationalists. They're anti-immigration. They're anti-foreigners. They're xenophobic and whatever else. I'm way more far right than Kari Lake or Donald Trump. Way more far right. I mean, I make Donald Trump look like a Democrat. I'm so much further right than he is. But they're doing it for a reason. That whole narrative, that whole mainstream liberal narrative is intended to water down your view of your own individual citizenship and what you should come to expect from your citizenship, what you should come to expect from your American identity, the value of it, what you should come to expect from your political leaders. And what they want is this run-of-the-mill, clean-cut, never really rocks the boat political candidate. And they'll take them on either side. That is the uniparty. Uniparty, uniparty, uniparty. You have to say it 3 times like Beetlejuice, because this thing is decrepit and ugly and ruthless. They want run-of-the-mill, clean-cut, never rock the boat politicians. They'll tell you that they don't like Donald Trump because of the liar he is, because of when he's dishonest. But that's not true. Is Donald Trump dishonest sometimes? Of course, we all are. Has Donald Trump said some things that I don't agree with? Yeah. Has Donald Trump done some things I don't agree with? Absolutely. It wouldn't be the things that the liberals don't agree with, by the way. It would be the things that the liberals agree with him on that I would disagree with, which is why I'm further right than he is. But that's not the point. The point is their dislike for Donald Trump isn't when he's been dishonest. It isn't when he's been controversial. Their dislike for him is when he's been honest. That's a scam they're running on the American people, and they're running on the black community. Their dislike for far right, the manifestation of whatever far right means in politics, is not the dishonest part. And we know that because it's pure hypocrisy. It's a contradiction. They are dishonest. So they don't dislike the opposition for doing what they do. They hate the moments when their opposition has this transparency, right? This deeply clear moral understanding, when they drive straight to the heart of the issue. That's what they don't like about Donald Trump. That's what they don't like about Kari Lake. That's what they don't like about me. They don't like to be named. They like politicians who won't name the names. They like politicians who won't say the real issues. Trade, immigration, China. They like politicians who dance around these issues, or who will say that they care about these issues, but then when they actually are in office, they do nothing to solve those problems, to fight those issues. And black people are at the center of the narrative. If you like Donald Trump and you're white, you're supporting the white supremacists, you don't care about black people, you're taking us backwards in time. If you're black and you like Donald Trump, you're not black. You're not even black. We're letting white, liberal, transgender lesbians tell black people they're not black because they like Donald Trump or because they agree with Donald Trump's policies. Some of his policies, not all of them, some of them. The important ones, the really important ones for the time and circumstance we're in. The audacity of it. but really the lack of self-respect and self-pride that we show as the Black community. So I would actually sit for the Black National Anthem too, because I think that the Black National Anthem is a farce. It's a false catharsis. It's a way for us to stand up and pretend like there's this Black community or there's this organization of Black politics or Black culture that is meant to uplift and make Black America's a better, a more prosperous and powerful part of this country. Kari Lakes didn't stand for a different reason. I'll refuse to stand for the real reason that all Black people should refuse to stand for the Black National Anthem playing at the Super Bowl. Because the NFL and its corporate partners and all their political lobbyists and the military-industrial complex and all these institutions only come to give you the Black National Anthem to distract you from them stealing your money. Stealing your money, stealing the value of your citizenship, stealing the value of your American identity, sabotaging the American identity and the nation state as a whole, undermining the nation state, this nation and its founding ideals, which ultimately led to the abolishment of slavery, which ultimately led to the reimagining of what it means to be a nation and to be a citizen all around the world. All of these people have a hand in the water at the watering hole to undermine these things. So playing the Black National Anthem isn't, oh, Black people are going to have their moment. Black people are rising. And all the Black people who participate in it, they know it. They just want their 15 minutes of fame. They just want to be at the Super Bowl. They just want to be looked at as though they're doing something that's bringing all Black people up. When they all know the truth, the circumstance of Black America is not the Black National Anthem at the Super Bowl. The circumstance of Black America is on the south side of Chicago. The circumstance of Black America is in the 5th Ward in Houston. The circumstance of Black America is in Watts, Los Angeles. It's in North Minneapolis. It's in South Minneapolis. It's in Dade County in Miami. It's in Brooklyn. What used to be Brooklyn. It's in the 5 boroughs there in New York City. Pick one. They all have problems with it. This is the real circumstance of Black America. It's not the national anthem. That's a lie. And it's a lie the same way the all-woman flyover isn't a representation of this country at large. This is how the narrative they're playing 2 narratives right over top of one another. No, we'll give you this narrative for those of you who are more patriotic and you want to honor our military men. And then they'll give you one narrative underneath that's all you Black people are rising up in the country. And it's all a lie. The whole thing is a lie. And then they want you not, and they don't want you, they want you to, and here's what it's set up to do. It's set up for you to hate somebody like me, who will show you on either side, whatever Kool-Aid you're drinking, whatever Kool-Aid you're taking from the narrative, it's meant to raise your blood sugar. It's meant to give you diabetes. It's meant to give you a dopamine rush. It's meant to get you high. That's what the real aim of the narrative is. The aim of the narrative is to be able to make you discontent with any genuine leaders that rise up that tell you the whole thing is a scam, because the whole thing is built on it being a scam and you paying into it. You buying into it. You giving your dollar and your vote to these people. That's what it's intended to do. That's what the Super Bowl is intended to do. Maybe not the players, maybe not the coaches, maybe not the offensive and defensive coordinators, maybe not the trainers, maybe not the strength and conditioning guys who put in all the time and the work and the effort and the blood and the sweat and the tears. They're just pawns in the game. We're looking at the Roman Colosseum. And we say that in a sort of, metaphorical way, but there's nothing metaphorical about it. We're looking at the Roman Colosseum when we look at the Super Bowl at the highest level. It's meant to distract you. It's a bread and circus. And they're giving you all the narratives you need there. The military industrial complex in this country has bastardized the sacrifice and of our troops, of our young men and women, of American citizens since the time when it blew off John Kennedy's head, and even before that. But the Iraq war that so many American soldiers, too many American soldiers were lost in, was a war that was never righteous. It was corrupt from the word go. We had no business in Iraq. We had no business in Iraq for 10 to 15 years. We had no business over there trying to take their oil. We had no business in Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden was an Afghani. Osama bin Laden was a Saudi. His family was Saudi royalty. We trained them. We weaponized them. We used them. That's probably why my podcast won't meet the criteria of the algorithm. They know what I'm talking about. They know who I am. They know who I am, and they know what I'm saying. And they know that it's true. They wanted you to believe that you should give over your freedom, your rights for security on one side and materialism on the other. Many middle America Republicans were sold the narrative about radical Islam and the threat of terrorism. And they all bought in. They all watched Fox News. They watched Hannity. They watched Tucker. They watched whoever else was talking at the time that the access of evil is in the Middle East and it's radical Islam. And we all must give over our rights to an authoritarian, totalitarian surveillance state in order to fight off radical Islam. If not, 9/11 will be happening every single week of every year. What a complete farce. Patriot Act. That's what you got out of it. So when I see the flyover, the all-female flyover, I see the merger between the post-World War II democratic liberal order, European monarchy, academic philosophers, and the military-industrial complex. That's all I see. When I see the Black National Anthem paired up with the all-women flyover of the Navy, all I see is the merger of liberalism and communism with a strong undercurrent of secularism that's aimed at globalism. That's what it is. Believe it or not, doesn't matter to me. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what it is. They're not going after Kari Lake because she's racist. They're going after Kari Lake because she's the one person in the building that knows that the whole thing is a scam. And I wouldn't be mad at Kari Lake if she went there to support, because she's trying to lead a state, and you have to meet people where they are. And that's why I'm further right than she is, because I'll sacrifice meeting people where they are to tell them what they need to hear, the truth, even if it means you don't get it for another 5 or 10 years, 30, 50, 100. I'm not going to massage your conscience. Everybody who went to the Super Bowl, let's get granular. Everybody who went to the Super Bowl, everybody who spent the money to go to the Super Bowl is looking for a distraction. They're looking for an out. They're looking for a distraction from these other stories that I'm going to get to in a moment. That's the truth. You don't have to accept it. You can say, oh, Royce is a gloom and doom conspiracy theorist. He's a radical. He's an asshole. He just wants to, do this, extreme alertism or whatever you want to call it. It's the truth. Look at the circumstance. Black people are right at the heart of it. Right at the heart of it. The Black National Anthem is going to represent this kumbaya of Black America when we are being marched around like a puppet in American politics. We have no power. The Black community, the Black America has no say in American politics. We vote Democrat, and we vote Democrat religiously, loyally. Ice Cube told you. Then you all went after him when he said, what are we getting for our Democrat vote? What do we get out of it? I want to go talk to Donald Trump and Joe Biden and try and help negotiate what Black people are going to get out of the vote. And that's a reasonable thing to do. It's a reasonable thing to do to ask yourself in a political culture or climate where race and demographic are so meticulously targeted by people who run elections, by the strategists, the political strategists, and all the verticals of all the political interest groups. It makes sense to ask, what are we, this demographic up on that chart, up on that board, going to get out of a yes vote for Democrats across the board, religiously? 85%. We vote Democrat 85%. We have effectively said, as the Black community, that the Democrats are not valuable. Or what we're really saying is that the threat of white supremacy, the threat of Republicans by way of far right white supremacy is so powerful, it's so inherent in American culture that we have to vote Democrat by default. If not, the KKK will reemerge and they'll ride from town to town, lynching and killing and raping black people. But that's just fear. That's the best drug in history. That's the best selling point in history is fear. That's what the black community has become in America. That's what the black political culture has become in America. It's become a bastion of fear. I'm not worried about the KKK riding through my neighborhood. When they come, the Second Amendment is my opportunity to protect myself and to expand the value of American citizenship in those constitutional documents that give us the right to bear arms against any majority, any corrupt, tyrannical majority, whether you're wearing a badge or not. And that's an entirely different conversation, but it's wrapped into this narrative. It's baked into this narrative with the NFL and Colin Kaepernick and anthems and our national anthem versus the black national anthem and so on and so forth. Your Second Amendment gives you the right to protect yourself in this country. Your Second Amendment gives you the right to protect your First Amendment. Those are the things you should be worried about because both of those are under threat. And I'm going to talk about that here in this last half hour. But both of those are under threat. Grave threat. That's what the Super Bowl is intended to do. To distract you from the incremental loss of rights. Don't worry about your rights. Look how good the show has gotten. It's got a little bit of everything for everybody. It's like Dean Phillips here, who is the congressman of CD3, whose dad was rich as they get, right? The Phillips vodka company is a very, very successful distillery and company here in Minnesota. It's American made, so I respect that. But Dean Phillips is as woke, metropolitan globalist as it gets. He'll come after me shortly. You'll see. Mark my words. Mark it down. Write it down, take it to the bank. Dean Phillips will lead a charge to come after me personally in the days to come, in the months to come. But Dean Phillips' tagline or his slogan of his political movement, his political brand is everybody's invited. Now, he's not saying the same everybody's invited that Kari Lake is saying, because for Dean Phillips, everybody isn't invited. For Dean Phillips, the Kari Lakes aren't invited. The Donald Trumps aren't invited. The Royce Whites aren't invited. The Malcolm X's wouldn't have been invited. And you black folks at home know that. You know that this neoliberal white establishment would never have given any spotlight to Malcolm X. Too conservative, too strong, knew too much, understood the game, understood the narrative, understood the way the game was played, warned you about the white liberal. Warned you, but it's not the liberals that I'm blaming for this, because you all have the opportunity to know and understand what Malcolm X did and said. You can go read what he said. It's not hidden from you. You're not being tricked. The purple hair transgender lesbian seance movement is not keeping you from Malcolm X. That's a lie. Although they are increasingly using transgender lesbians to teach black history. That's the rejection of CRT. The rejection of CRT isn't that we shouldn't talk about the history of black people. The rejection is that it's being used to brainwash a younger generation. And we know that. We see it. And you black people are fighting to have white liberals teach your kids about black history. And you want to say that that's a celebration of black people's rise in this country, and we're going to celebrate it at the NFL and take another payoff with 15 minutes of fame, another payoff with 15 seconds of fame is the saying, but in the Super Bowl, it's more like 15 minutes. Take a payoff of 15 minutes of fame to act like we're rising in the country. Well, we're fooling ourselves. That's all we're doing. It's us. That's us lying to ourselves. Same way when LeBron James signs $1 billion contract with Nike, or Barack Obama becomes the first president, or pick one, or gender non-binaries are now the lead roles in the new Black Panther movie. Oh, celebrate, kumbaya, rejoice, Praise be to Satan. Praise be to Satan. This is a sign of progress. This is black people coming up from that tragic, oppressive history. Lying to yourself. So I will talk about race because the lies are heavy and they're racially specific. Is it that white people are innocent in it? No. Oh, there's white supremacy. The white supremacy I see comes from the neoliberal establishment that tells the black man that he doesn't know what he should believe in. He's been brainwashed by the white patriarchy and conservatism and Christians and nationalists and fascists. You don't know what you should believe. Don't believe your lying eyes, young black man. Everything you see working over here with the white radical feminists and the LGBTQ and the beta male project and the black transgender lesbians, everything you see happening over here is normal. This is the new way of the world. This is progress. Don't look at the IMF. Don't look at the World Bank. Don't look at the war between Russia and Ukraine. Don't look at any of that. All of that, that's your eyes lying to you. This is where it is. And if you come over here, if you line up behind this train, we'll give you what you want. You want fame, you want glory, you want the spotlight, you want money, you want retweets, you want likes, you want an audience, you want a platform. You want to be able to speak your truth. Oh, girl, you better speak your truth, girl. Wouldn't know the truth if it slapped you in the face. Most of you wouldn't know the truth if it walked up to you on the street, opened its hand, and slapped you right across the face. Couldn't spell truth. Honestly, most of you couldn't spell the word truth. And that's not a dig on black people. That's to say that we've let our education become a tool of Marxism and liberalism. That's why the standards are down on graduating or moving from class to class. You think it's because they want all kids to feel good about their education and the progress of their education? Start teaching your own kids. How about that? Because if you come to the white residence at night, my son and daughter are watching Malcolm X. I'm not scared of radical Islam. We're Christians. We know who we are. We're not afraid of coming into contact with this infectious ideology. And many of these Muslims around the world have a more devout practice and have a more grasp of the contemplative and discipline than any of you Christians and Jews could ever hope for. And I'm a Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I was baptized, born and raised Catholic. Let's speak honestly. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that here in a moment as well. That's what I wanted to say, though, to end the first hour. Black people, you have allowed yourselves to become the outer guard with the Republican rhino establishment of New World Order and really Satanism, the open rejection of God. And we're supposed to celebrate it. The Black National Anthem is a celebration. Get serious. Get serious. They mean to make you a ward of the state, the welfare state, a global welfare state. We don't have time to celebrate the Black National. The Black National Anthem in that regard is a farce. Now, if we want to kneel for the national anthem, everybody, if we want to kneel for our national anthem, let's kneel because we allowed a group of elite, corrupt politicians to take the value of our citizenship and leverage it on the international stage to wage a globalist war, culture war on citizenship writ large. That'd be a righteous reason to kneel for the anthem. And if any of you Republicans and middle white Americans out there don't understand that there would be and there is going to come a time where you must righteously kneel and stand against the narrative of patriotism because of what this country's become, then you're in on it. That's the truth. You're in on it. Don't pick a side to get out of being in the fight. Don't pick a fictitious Fugazi side to get out of the fight to come. That's cowardly. That doesn't make you a patriot, and it doesn't make you pro-black. It makes you a coward. It makes you a coward, it makes you a cuck, and effectively it makes you a drug addict because what they're giving to you is the dopamine of reaffirmation in a narrative that you, they, and everybody in between knows is false. I want to get to a few news stories here for the last 30 minutes. I said I wasn't going to get intense today. I actually said it was going to be lighthearted. But the Kari Lake thing really brought something out of me, because this whole black-white identity thing is being used ad nauseum. It's being used relentlessly to keep us distracted. Now, we got a couple other stories here I want to get to. One is obviously this Michigan State University shooting, and my thoughts and prayers are with all of those who lost their lives in this Michigan State University shooting. This is going to become more and more normal, right? We have a society that's sick, and this sick society cannot be solved through secular politics or giving people universal basic income or any of that other stuff. We have a cultural decay. And in a cultural decay, many more and more people are going to start to lose it, to crack psychologically. More people on drugs, more people addicted to porn, more people resenting themselves, hating themselves, not having a strong sense of love and hope. This is despair. This is angst. This will create the circumstance for violence and tragedy. So my thoughts and prayers go out to them, but I want to show you the CNN headline here. I don't want to get into the details because, neither here nor there. People lost their lives in a shooting at Michigan State University. I have friends that have gone to Michigan State that came from Michigan State University. I know a young man that was just recently at Michigan State University. I have two siblings, a brother and a sister, that are currently at college playing collegiate sports. So this is a lot. I mean, this is scary. But look at the headline. The Michigan State University killer was previously charged with a felony, but was still able to buy guns. Going to work on your Second Amendment. We create a culture of decay, of moral decay, a crisis of the human condition, spiritual and philosophical bankruptcy. And then when people lose their mind, when people crack under the pressure, under the weight of Satan, and they decide to kill a bunch of people, now it's time to come and take your guns. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Thoughts and prayers to the people who lost their lives aside. Many, many more people will lose their lives if the Second Amendment didn't exist and wasn't protected. You think people are dying now. Let me give you and let me show you how we see a headline and we see videos and we get the news soon. So there's an overreaction to the things that happen in the everyday world. This is why every bit of local news around the country gives you the scare tactics. I'm not giving you the scare tactics when I talk about globalism. They're giving you the scare tactics when they talk about robberies on the local news every night. People are not getting robbed and killed at mass in this country. That is a lie. That is a scare tactic intended to get you to buy into giving up your gun for the security of the state. They can protect you. Well, I come from a neighborhood when the police are called, they always show up after somebody's already been shot. They always show up after somebody's already been stabbed. They're rarely there to stop any crime from happening. And that's not an anti-police sentiment. All I'm saying is that the police are a backstop to the Second Amendment. They're not supposed to substitute it. The police are there to reinforce law and order, not to uphold your individual security. We've been lied to. We've been brainwashed. You're supposed to ensure your security. That's how our Constitution was laid out. And if the black folks could have read when the Constitution was written, who were enslaved, and they understand it soon enough, they would have understood that that's what the Second Amendment meant, and they would have used the Second Amendment to legitimize their own citizenship. Many of them just couldn't read yet. Once we got enough time under our belt to read, that is how the movement happened. That is how slavery was abolished, and that is how black people came into the sphere of having equal rights under the United States Constitution. So that's how this Michigan State narrative is being spun. I don't have to talk about it anymore. We can go on to the next one. They want to take your Second Amendment rights. Your children who are going to college to get a Marxist education, to learn Marxism, they're in danger. If we don't take the guns, your beautiful, sweet children are in danger of being shot and killed on their Marxist universities, campuses. But not in the Ukrainian and Russia war. If we have to go to war with a country that's now putting 500,000 troops on the border of the Ukraine for an offensive here in the spring, don't worry about your children dying in that war. That's a noble cause. The sovereignty of the Ukraine and its border is a noble cause. That's worth dying for. But it's not worth a few people dying to protect the Second Amendment rights. That's not worth it. Incredible. More from the front. This was about a week back, but I came across this article where is it the president in Brazil or is it the prime minister? What do they call him in Brazil? President. Okay, President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, PT, progressive globalist. I don't even know. Are they putting that in there are they calling him a progressive globalist, or is he a part of the progressive globalist party there? I don't know. Either way, this now, mind you, now, please look that up for me, because this is from Latin America News. This is not an American or far right wing American media institution. This came from Latin America News. And the headline reads, Lula says that parents will be forced to vaccinate their children to keep government aid flowing. Now, every time we talk about COVID or vaccination on this podcast, we run the chance of the episode being demonetized. And I think in that shows the dishonest impulse of how the technocracy, how big tech is really working. And their overall ambition and motive to silence, to censor, to oppress dissenters. But here we have the Brazilian president who won under a very controversial election, saying parents will be forced to vaccinate their children if they want to keep government aid. This is what's coming to you, black people. Understand. I don't know how else to say it to you. I don't know how else to tell you. Put me back up on the screen, please. I don't know how else to say it to you. This is what's coming. This is the end result of the welfare state. This is what universal basic income will look like. And the decision you have to make is, are you so doubtful about your ability to create a sustainable life, economically, essential needs, basics? Are we so concerned with a lack of ability to create a sustainable and prosperous life in this country that we're willing to sign over our rights to get a universal basic income from the government, from the state? So white supremacy is inherent. America was founded upon white supremacy, but now white transgender lesbians or white liberals or white radical feminists or white beta males are going to save the day by telling you that your hair is pretty. And you want me to follow that. Me, a serious black man. You want me to follow you. Not gonna happen. Sorry, can't do it. You can revoke my black card. You can say that I'm a coon, Uncle Tom, all you want to. Not happening. Not going to happen. Never. Never will I follow a group of people who are so goofy. These people are goofy. That's the honest to God's truth. They're goofy. They take everything else away. They're just goofy. You got a bunch of white, liberal, middle-aged 20-year-olds at a rally for LGBTQ transgenderism, barking like dogs because they want to identify as puppies. They want to fight for the right to identify as puppies, and they want you to give your guns away when Joe Biden is threatening that the Second Amendment means nothing because the government has F-16s. Are you people stupid? Have you lost your mind? You black people out there who are, carrying water, running behind like little puppies behind the Democrat Party, are you people stupid? Come to the neighborhood and talk that nonsense. That political worldview is so bougie, bourgeois, corrupt, black, elite nonsense. It makes me sick. Spit on the floor. I'm going to spit on the floor when I meet some of you people. I'm telling you. When I meet some of you people in person, I'm spitting on the floor. That's how disgusted I am with that whole scam y'all got running. Kari Lake is the white supremacist. She's the enemy. You're the enemy. Don't be talking about crabs in a barrel and black people shouldn't be dissing one another, or black people should never talk down to one another, or should never criticize each other in front of white folks. I'm spitting on the floor when I see you people because you disgust me. You know what this is. You know what that is. You know what you're doing, and you know why you don't want black people to be able to criticize other black people, because you don't want the reemergence of the Malcolm X types who looked right at the black bourgeoisie and said, y'all are in on it. I'm seeing the checks getting paid. I'm following the money. Y'all are in on it. BLM, I'm following the money. You're in on it. Oh, and there's a variation of this on the black conservative side, too. There's a shill on the black conservative side, too. Don't get me wrong. Oh, it's a uniparty. And there's this sort of more conservative-leaning, black, lukewarm, moderate Republican as well. And we'll talk about that one day, I'm sure. I'm equal opportunity with the criticism. You'll come to learn that in the podcast. Spit on the floor. You guys know that the welfare state at the global scale will eventually turn into exactly what's happening in Brazil. In order for you to get your government aid, in order for your kids to eat, in order for your kids to go to school, you got to get them vaccinated. And we don't have to be specific on what kind of vaccine it is. We don't have to give you the proof. We're under the pressure of speed of science. We're under the pressure of global health crisis, and we need the speed of science. Sellouts. Trading your freedom and your citizenship for security and materialism. That's what universal basic income is. We'll give you the security and the material. You give us your freedom. The freedom that we fought so hard to achieve, that is conveyed in the Black National Anthem, and y'all want me to stand for it while you're selling out. Y'all want me to stand for the Black National Anthem and get mad at Kari Lake when y'all are all selling the very idea down the river to white liberals and transgenders? Spit on the floor. You disgust me. Not doing it. Can't follow you. Sorry. I know too much. I know the truth. You know the truth. Truth is, this ain't about no black liberation or prosperity. Truth is, this is about a few people getting their cut, getting paid, being in on the future, being in the exceptional group, while they lead the rest of the masses right into the gulags. And y'all may not understand it yet because they've inundated your mind so much on social media with radical materialism. All of you think you're going to be the next social media influencer driving the Lamborghini with the good 15-minute hit and sound music behind it where you get 100,000 likes. Is that the height of citizenship? Is that the height of this new global citizenship? You get an 8x8 apartment in a line city in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia. You get a Tesla, and you get to selfie yourself. You get to selfie your Tesla and you with your tattoos and your crop tops and your new Christian Louboutins or whatever other crazy red rubber shoes they're coming out with these days. You get all that stuff. And as long as you can put it up on Instagram or TikTok and you can get the likes and comments and affirmation from other people, then you're a citizen. Then you're prospering. Spit on the floor. You disgust me. It's a lie. You know it's a lie. I know it's a lie. This is what black people have become. Let's keep going here. This was supposed to be lighthearted, but actually it's the most intense one yet. If you're just joining the podcast today, the other four were not this intense. But this stuff is, on a weekly by weekly, daily by daily basis, this stuff really starts to frustrate and irritate me. Let's go to the next one. The IMF says we need to prepare for the unthinkable after COVID and the war in Ukraine. So this is the International Monetary Fund. Remember, I told you the three organizations, the three multilateral organizations that came out of World War II and the liberal international order were the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, and the International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva has warned that the world needs to be prepared to better handle shocks and the unthinkable in a post-COVID-19 world and in light of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, so this is the International Monetary Fund going out and saying that we're going to need digital currency and all these other things. We're going to have to restructure the entire monetary policy and global economic infrastructure, which is based around centralized digital currency. They say that in other articles. I don't even know if they said this in this one. But here's an interesting thing. IMF plays stabilizing role in the Ukraine. So the whole IMF is they're dumping money into the Ukraine. But remember, Andrew Bustamante, the CIA ex-spy and shill, says that we don't have any economic interest in the Ukraine, that nobody has an economic interest in the Ukraine. Yet the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is dumping billions and billions of dollars into the Ukraine. They think you're stupid. They're giving you the Black National Anthem, though. $500 billion to the Ukraine. Oh, they're not giving black people $500 billion. The $500 billion is going into the Ukraine. Okay, the trillions of dollars that they're going to run up by the end of this is going to go into the Ukraine. For $6 trillion that we spent in Afghanistan, Chicago, Detroit, D.C., Los Angeles, Houston, St. Louis, they should look like Shangri-La. Nope, spent your money over there in Afghanistan. And what were they teaching in Afghanistan? What were the two things we did in Afghanistan? We ran up a huge tab for military equipment that we eventually left in Afghanistan. And we taught young Afghani girls about gender binary theory, queer theory. Great way to spend our money. Great use of resources. Incredible. These people's budget management skills are off the charts. International Monetary Fund in Ukraine dumping billions of dollars, saying that we need to prepare for more shocks to come. Let's go to the next one. We're just kind of scrolling through these stories here. This is the news. This is the news that matters. Oh, there it is. White House announces Tesla will open supercharger network to expand electric vehicle access. All of you who take a universal basic income, all of you who are wards of the welfare state, in order for you to get your welfare, are you aware of our new electric vehicle program? The new electric vehicle program that we're offering to disenfranchise black women who are single mothers? Are you aware that we've actually paid Elon Musk $1 trillion by the time it's all said and done to give you your own electric vehicle? And oh, by the way, there are all these climate criteria that we have to meet where there's only a certain amount of places, a certain amount of area you can travel during the day. You can't go where you want when you want. Yeah, because it's a government program and because the government technically owns this electric vehicle that you're driving in this program, we have to know everywhere you are. I mean, that's just a matter of liability, right? This is what's coming. They're saying it. They're going to put more chargers, more Tesla chargers all over the map. So by 2030, 50% of the new sales of cars will be electric vehicles. Now, they won't tell you that in order to get an electric vehicle right now, you have to go get the cobalt from the mine shaft in the Congo where they put 15 to 20,000 poor African villagers down in a mine shaft in a cobalt mine to dig the cobalt out of the ground with their bare hands. They won't tell you that the survival of the fittest, Darwinist, European monarchy academia philosophy is what they're using right there in the cobalt mines in the Congo, the same way that Belgium was in the Congo when they were taking rubber. The same way the European monarchies with Leopold were in the Congo getting rubber when we needed the rubber. Now it's the cobalt for the lithium batteries. It's the same slavery, drugs, and piracy model that the crown and the globalists have always had. The only difference is you've opted into a small piece of the pie. Before it was you're in chains, you don't get a say. Then it was if too many of you rise up, the whole thing may topple. So we're going to stabilize it by giving you a piece of the pie. But that piece of the pie is going to be so fictitious and so dishonest, you're not even going to know the difference, right? Great. Lithium batteries, more lithium, more cobalt, more responsibly sourced cobalt, right? That's what they tell you on the package. This was responsibly sourced. There is no responsible sourcing. It's a lie. Let's go to the next story. Oh, there it is. The headline of play the video, please. We're approaching 90 minutes. We may run a few minutes over, but we're going to cap it right at 90 minutes here. And we'll get you the guest for Friday's show here by the end of the show. Play the video. Start it from the beginning for me. This is stop it. This is Jens Stoltenberg, high up there in NATO. Listen to this video.
With Russia. Neither NATO nor NATO allies are party to the conflict. What we do as NATO allies and NATO is to provide support to Ukraine. Ukraine is defending itself. We need to understand what this is. This is a war or aggression. President Putin, Russia, has attacked a sovereign, independent, democratic, free nation in Europe, Ukraine. And of course, Ukraine has the right to defend itself. The right of self-defense is enshrined in the UN Charter. It's a part of international law. And of course, we have the right to help Ukraine uphold their right for self-defense. So NATO and NATO allies are not party to the conflict, but we support Ukraine with Russia.
Here we go. That's it right there. I mean, we're not party to the conflict in Russia. NATO has nothing to do with the conflict in Russia. We're just providing support to the Ukraine. That's all we're doing. We're not actually there in Russia. We're just support. We're just sending them guns. That's it. It's the same thing we were doing that instigated the conflict. We're just doing it. Really what happened here is that Vladimir Putin was baited into a war that they could then use. What he underestimated was the West's stronghold on the mainstream narrative. I think he believed that more people would see the corruption of this entire conflict. And that was a miscalculation. Or maybe he didn't care. Maybe he only cares about what the people in Russia think. And I think a lot of people in Russia do understand the nature of this conflict. When I talk to people who are from Russia or the Ukraine here in America that I know personally, they seem to have a more open mind about the scope of this entire conflict. And maybe that's all he cares about. But all of you at home who are going to take the universal basic income, you're all in on the narrative. You're all in on the narrative. Vladimir Putin this is a war of aggression. Now, what do you think would happen? Let's just play this out. What do you think would happen if Russia were to reemerge in Cuba with weapons, with missile defense systems? If we invaded Cuba, if we invaded Cuba under those circumstances, would that be considered a war of aggression? Or no, because Cuba's not a part of the United Nations. And I think they're not a part of the United Nations. They're certainly not a part of the World Bank, but I think they're not a part of the United Nations either. So what they're saying is everybody who's in the United Nations has protection of wars of non-aggression. These are the geopolitical pillars that we put in place to stop people from killing each other. But we can go into Iraq. Remember that. Remember when we just, slid our way into Iraq and the United Nations actually denounced that war. They actually said that was not right, not ethical. Then they folded. Then the entire NATO folded. France sent us troops. Great Britain sent us troops, right? Wasn't a war of aggression for us to go into Iraq. Why? Because Saddam Hussein was a radical Muslim, and the Taliban took down the planes at 9/11. Building 7. Building 7. Building 7 fell. Why? Building 7 fell because it felt so bad for building 1 and 2. Just out of pure empathy, right? Building 7 had a profound empathy for 1 and 2. 1 and 2 fell, and Building 7 said, you know what? I might as well just go 2. Why? We're going down together, all of us. Give me a break. We went into Iraq, and we were there for 20 years. We overthrew the Iraqi government in the first months there, and we stayed there. Why? To stabilize the region? Is the region more stable? Does the culpability of that fall on other people, on all of the troops and anybody who lost their life? No. But we have to look at the overall implications of the Iraq war, our behavior on the global stage, and now a conflict between Ukraine and Russia that threatens to turn into nuclear war. We have to look at it with honesty on all sides. NATO's not involved. We're just giving the Ukrainians guns. We're supporting. Next story here. I think this is the last story. And I want to come back to this on Monday as well. How America took out the Nord Stream pipeline. Seymour Hersh. Now, everybody should go and look up this article, How America Took Out the Nord Stream Pipeline. If you remember, there was a Nord Stream pipeline that exploded or, was bombed. And America claimed that they had no part in it, although many people believe there was a covert operation to bomb the Nord Stream pipeline. And the evidence they used to back this up was Joe Biden saying in a soundbite that has now been viral many times that if Putin invaded the Ukraine, that the Nord Stream pipeline would go. And so you can read the story on your own. I'm not going to go into it, but this article is kind of detailing how this secret operation took place, or some beliefs about the secret operation. More lies from the front. Next story, please. And finally, we have the story in Ohio, right? The Ohio train derailment. And I want you to listen to this video here for a moment. It's about a minute and a half. This video was posted by American Virtue on Twitter.
Massive train derailed Friday, 20 of them carrying hazardous materials as flames lit up the sky in northeastern Ohio.
The evacuation order is in place for anyone within a mile radius of the crash site.
These aren't storm clouds. This is the off in East Palestine. This is not. Look at it.
I hope it is. This is horrible. I got arrested because I was trying to do a live report about what people need to know.
Officials are claiming that the air and water are safe. Residents say they can still smell chlorine. They've complained about their eyes watering when they go outside, and one woman says the noxious air killed her chickens.
Out of nowhere, he just started coughing really hard and just shut down and went very fast.
Look at all these crows. I'm not kidding.
This is within 10 miles of East Palestine.
If you have not evacuated, please leave the area.
You can stop it. I mean, I don't know what's going on here in Ohio. All I know is that a train was derailed. This train was carrying toxic chemicals, and these toxic chemicals were so toxic that there was an evacuation. There was an area roped off for evacuation in this area in East Palestine, Ohio, and that fish and wildlife that were within the area of these toxic chemicals were found dead in ponds and in the woods and things like that. So these chemicals were definitely strong enough to kill some people. And obviously you can see the fire there was profound. If you got a chance to see the video, if you're watching, you saw what the smoke looked like from space. They actually had it wasn't space, but it was high up above the clouds, that this smoke cloud actually got high up there to around 30,000 feet, what it looked like. I don't know what's going on there, but I know there's a lot of mystery and a lot of concern and controversy around this issue in Ohio. And I want to look more into it over the week and see how it progresses, see how the story comes out, and touch back on it on Monday after finding out more information. But everybody should be looking at that story and paying close attention and go look at that video that's posted on Twitter that we just showed. If you can, American Virtue is the Twitter. And there's a minute and a half video on this Ohio train derailment. Housekeeping. Our first Family and Friends episode will be on Friday evening. Our first guest will be Chris Martenson. Chris Martenson is the founder of Peak Prosperity. Peak Prosperity has a great YouTube channel, and he is an incredible mind. He has fought against the establishment on multiple narratives. He has managed to keep a YouTube channel up and build a very successful YouTube channel. He and I did an interview about a year back, or maybe a year and a half back, and we've continued to, have great conversations behind the scenes, and we are part of the same sort of group of thinkers, activists, experts, politicians all kinds of people who are trying to fight back against the mainstream narrative and this overall corruption. So Chris Martinson will be our first Family and Friends guest on Friday, and I have spoken with Kari Lake's team, and we are confident that Kari Lake will make time in the coming weeks to join us on the podcast for a Family and Friends episode. She's a very busy woman, obviously fighting for her election there in Arizona still, and still in the throes of all of that. But we hope to be able to see Kari Lake here on the show in the weeks to come. Other housekeeping: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can find us on YouTube, premiering on YouTube. We are also premiering on Rumble at 9 p.m. as well. And we want to give a special thank you to Captain Bannon, Maureen Bannon, Steve Bannon, and the entire War Room posse for live streaming Monday's episode on War Room, on Getter. And we are looking into hopefully being able to stream the episodes live on Getter and stream on some other places as well. I thought it was really cool how they were able to stream the episode from YouTube onto Getter. I didn't even know that they could do that. I had concerns that they would be able to, but they got it done. They're a good team over there, and they got a great grasp on the machine, and the entire War Room operation is incredible. So definitely I want to give a special thank you to them for streaming the episode. We thank all of you for your continued viewership and your support. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Every subscription, every like, every comment counts. Please help the algorithm. Help us in the algorithm. Help get us to altitude, because the machine won't help at all. The titles, even the titles. Understand the YouTube algorithm works on titles. This is a way that they control the narrative. It's not direct censorship. The algorithm itself is meant to aggregate titles that are more or less gravitate towards superficial nonsense. When you got a striking title that goes right to the heart of it, the globalist agenda and the war in the Ukraine, not going to get much play. So definitely help us out if you can with likes and comments and sharing the episode if you can. And we have clips and shorts and things that are going to start to come out this week, so you can have shorter content to be able to share. Feel free to clip the content yourself, repost it, post it on your own channel, your own account, post it on social media, tag me. All of those things are good currency for the podcast, so that we can continue to bring the conversation that we're bringing. Thank you again for enduring me for an hour and a half. We got to a lot, and I got pretty passionate. I want to give a special message of support to Kari Lake. Continue to do exactly what you're doing. You're a fighter. We love you. We can't wait to have you on the show, but we support you, and I back you up 100%. The Black National Anthem at the Super Bowl was nothing more than a false catharsis and a false show of Black prosperity and Black rise in this country, when really all of us are on the decline. This entire nation, this entire constitutional republic is on the decline, and the people who put on that show are managing that decline. So thank you to Kari Lake for being a soldier and a warrior. We love you. To all of you out there, we thank you. We appreciate you joining the show. Every last one of you. We're at about 1,000 subscribers now. We got to 1,000 subscribers in the first week. Help us get those numbers up if you can. But we appreciate each and every subscriber. We're also going to be getting our patron programs up online this week, hopefully. You'll be able to find us on Locals. You'll be able to find us on Subscribe Star, and you'll also be able to find us on one other. Oh, I think we're going to get a donor box. Oh, I think donor box may be a little woke, so we'll see how it plays out with donor box. But we're going to try and get all three of those platforms so that people can donate and become patrons of the show if they choose. Thank you again for being here for another episode of Please Call Me Crazy. Please call me crazy. I invite it. I love it. I wear it as a badge of honor. The fight continues. Godspeed.